Imagine a time over 3,000 years ago where powerful kings traded gold, food, and even gossip, kind of like how we share memes and messages today. Around 1300 BCE, five big powers ruled the eastern Mediterranean. Egypt, the Hittites, Mycenae, Ugarit, and Canaan. They were connected by roads, ships, and royal messengers, just like countries today are linked by planes and the internet. As historian Eric H. Klein says, in a complex system such as our world today, this is all it might take for the overall system to become destabilized, leading to a collapse. Before the famous Sea Peoples showed up, these empires formed a glowing network. Strong but surprisingly fragile. Let's see how it all worked. Before we dive in, if you love fun history stories explained in super simple language, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. Let's meet our five empires around 1300 BCE. Egypt. Ruled by Pharaoh Ramesses II, Egypt built massive temples and traded gold, grain, and luxury goods up and down the Nile. Hatti, the Hittite empire, centered at Hattusa. In modern Turkey, they made iron tools and signed one of history's first peace treaties with Egypt. On mainland Greece, palace kings stored olive oil and wine in big jars called pithoa, and kept records in a script we now call Linear B. Ugarit was a busy port on Syria's coast where kings sent clay tablet letters in cuneiform. And Canaan, a group of city-states in today's Israel and Lebanon, was famous for purple dye and fine pottery. In Egypt, most trade ran on a barter system without coins. Farmers and craftsmen paid taxes in barley, copper or linen. According to historian James C. Thompson, the Deben functioned much as the dollar does in North America today, to let customers know the price of things, except that there was no Deben coin. In Hatti, the king lived in cliffside palaces and held councils with nobles and scribes who read and wrote messages by lamplight. They depended on iron, which they mined locally, and sent envoys to Egypt bearing horses and metalwork. In Ugarit, King Amurapi lamented in a clay letter, "My father, behold, the enemy's ships came. My cities were burned, and they did evil things in my country. May my father know it. Across Mycenae and Canaan, goods like olive oil, tin, cedar wood, and purple dye moved by sea and caravan." All five kingdoms ran a palace economy system, where wealth was gathered by the ruler and then redistributed. A setup that tied them into a single network of trade and diplomacy. Each empire ran things a bit differently, but all had strong rulers at the top. Egypt's pharaoh was seen as a living god. He commanded huge work crews to build stone temples. Local officials collected grain taxes and organized labor, kind of like a national public works department today. The Hittite king in Hattusa held council meetings with nobles and scribes. They read each other clay tablet reports by lamplight and made decisions together. The Mycenaean Wanax, or king, sat at long banquet tables. He made war plans while scribes logged every jar of olive oil or cup of wine in a script called Linear B. Ugarit's king shared power with a mix of merchants and priests. Cuneiform records show him weighing advice before acting. Canaanite chiefs often ruled in groups, balancing power so no one city got too big, kind of like a modern federation of small states. Farms and workshops filled palace storehouses. Farmers handed over part of their wheat or barley as taxes. That grain fed workers building palaces. Craftsmen made pottery, jewelry, and tools. Palaces sold or traded these for things they lacked, like tin for bronze. Elite loans? Rich families lent silver and grain, acting like banks. If a drought hit, they could call in favors or force a sale. Goods moved fast for their time. By sea, big wooden ships from Cyprus carried copper and tin to Egypt. They returned with gold and papyrus. By land, caravan routes ran from Syria through desert passes. Donkeys hauled spices, incense, and expensive dyes. Diplomatic gifts? Kings exchanged fancy presents to stay friendly. Ramesses II gave a golden chariot to the Hittite king. The Hittite king sent back fine horses. Imagine you're a Ugarit sailor. You load jars of olive oil and cedar planks onto your ship. You've got a clay tablet letter from your boss? Send wood fast, we need it to fix the temple roof. You sail to Hatti, sell your cedar and buy tin bars to mix with copper back home. It's like delivering furniture to one city, then importing parts to build phones in another. All these links made the system bright until it wasn't. Small troubles spread fast. Droughts wiped out crops, so farmers couldn't pay grain taxes. Earthquakes brought down city walls, stopping trade along key roads. Rebels in one region cut off caravan paths, leaving neighbors stranded. Eric H. Klein describes it as a concatenation of events, both human and natural, including climate change and drought, seismic disasters known as earthquake storms, internal rebellions, and systems collapse, coalesced to create a perfect storm that brought this age to an end. When one empire's supply lines broke, its partners felt the shock, just like a power outage in one city can crash the grid in another. When one empire's supply lines broke, its partners felt the shock, just like a power outage in one city can crash the grid in another. When the great palaces fell after about 1200 BCE, new players rose from the ruins. Only a few big states survived in any strength, like a weakened Egypt and Assyria, but the Phoenician city-states really shone. Archaeologist Nancy DeMann notes that Phoenicians profited from chaos by using their shipbuilding skills to trade widely on Mediterranean waves. Meanwhile, small Syro-Hittite kingdoms sprouted in Cilicia and the Levant, blending Hittite and local traditions. Canaanite speakers formed groups like Israel, Moab, and Ammon, writing early stories on clay pots that later became parts of the Hebrew Bible. Iron technology also spread fast. Farmers and toolmakers swapped bronze for cheaper iron, making plows and hoes that helped feed growing populations. The blueprint of international diplomacy survived too. The Hittite-Egypt peace treaty inspired later pacts, and gift exchanges continued under new rulers. As historian Robert Drews puts it, this was arguably the worst disaster in ancient history, yet from its ashes grew the networks and technologies that shaped the Iron Age world. By 1300 BCE, Egypt, the Hittites, Mycenae, Ugarit and Canaan had woven a web of politics, trade and culture as tight as our modern networks. But as historian Eric H. Klein warns, the same interdependence that powers us today can also ripple problems wide and fast. When one link broke, the whole system trembled, yet from that collapse rose new ideas, Phoenician ships, iron tools and early diplomatic practices that shaped the Iron Age. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through the late Bronze Age, give us a like, leave a comment on what surprised you most, and hit subscribe with the bell icon so you don't miss episode 2 on the Sea Peoples and the Great Collapse. Stay curious.